Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast, episode number 63. I spent years building my interior design business trying to do all the things. The marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Well, hey there, Changemakers. Amy here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I trust you are well and safe and healthy and maybe even enjoying this time right now a little bit. I have been speaking with a few people and checking in with some friends and clients, and it sounds like people are starting to adjust to this new reality, but also doing it in a good way. I've had a number of people who've replied that they're really enjoying it. Actually, they're enjoying having some time with their family and connecting back. I just finished watching. If you remember, it's a Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley, I think, movie, the For Richer or For Poorer. Anyway, I just finished watching it today and sort of brought me back to that movie and what's going on today. You know, this idea that our reality is changing or has changed dramatically in the last few weeks. And just this idea of moving back to something simpler in a way. The weather's starting to change where I'm at, so I am loving sitting outside on the deck in the morning and just having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in the afternoon or just being outside getting some sunshine. So I'm excited for it. I want to, again, just say thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you listening in every week, and I hope that you found the last few episodes, the last 4 episodes were Facebook Lives that I had recorded as both a podcast and I had done the live. If you caught me on Facebook, fantastic. If you listened on the podcast, also fantastic. And I would love to hear your feedback about what you thought or what you think of the podcast, what you would love to hear more about. Just help me out and see if I can bring some topics that are near and dear to your heart, so answer some questions about what you would like to do. I want to talk today about something that came across my desk actually earlier this week. I had a very interesting conversation with a brand new business owner who they're in a product-based business and they had just gotten their first order. They're really excited about getting their first order, and they had an option set up within their business that customers could pay by email transfer versus saying just using a credit card or something to pay for the order. So the business owner was very excited to have his first order and hadn't received the payment yet, but wanted to got a little bit into, the way that we all do when we're doing something new. We're looking at this. We're like, well, we want to really value our customers and we want to make sure that they feel like we are with them and behind them and support them and are appreciative of their business. And so he actually sent the product off to the customer, shipped it out without having fully collected the payment. And then, of course, about a week later was going, what the heck do I do now? I haven't gotten the payment yet and this order has already been shipped. So what I want to talk about today is not, what the heck do you do to collect the payment? The short answer is you reach out to the customer and ask for them to pay it, FYI. And if that seems a bit obvious, that was the suggestion that I made during my conversation with this business owner, and it was met with a lot of resistance. They didn't want to do this for whatever reason, I'm not sure. Sometimes it might be shame or guilt or fear. I think a lot of times it comes down to fear that we just don't want to. We don't want to appear money hungry. And I'm going to touch on that in a bit here as well. But What I want to start off with is the idea that when you're beginning your business, and when I say beginning, you might not have, taken your first job on or sold your first project yet. You might have been doing your business for a few months. You might be in it for a year or two already. What I want to say is don't be desperate for the order. There's a lot of negativity that can come out of moving into work or the opportunity for sales from a place of lack. Now, I've shared a story before that I'm not going to go into again today, but I've shared a story before about when I was early on in my design business and I had the opportunity to work with someone, and I wanted that work so much that I compromised on my price and I changed what my normal strategy was for pricing a project. It didn't turn out well. In fact, it was one of the least fun experiences of having my business flat out, end of sentence right there. But I learned a lot from it and I changed the strategy of my business based on it. It also taught me this very, very, very key lesson that I cannot say enough how important it is. We cannot move into our business, expect to grow our business when we are willing to take anything that comes forward, which is the same, just a different way of saying, don't be desperate for the order. If you are starting a service-based business, this is really tricky for those of us in service-focused businesses because we want to prove ourselves, particularly when we're starting a new business. We want to prove that we're good at what we do. We want to build a client base. There's lots of business coaches out there who say, just take anything you can get to build your reputation. And that's a very dangerous way of building a business. And I mean dangerous because you could take every project out there. You could say yes to everybody. I know when I started, a friend of mine said, "Hey, Amy, why don't you paint kitchen cabinets?" Which they were very well-meaning, and I think they meant to say, this way you could potentially select the colors and maybe help design the kitchen, but then you also get paid the work for painting kitchen cabinets. Y'all, painting kitchen cabinets is a lot of work. And it needs to be done right, and it needs to be done by somebody who understands how to deal with the material and who actually cares about it. And I had none of those. So I was very straightforward and just said, I think, thank you so much for your idea, but I actually don't want to do that. That doesn't fall in line with where I want my business to go. Had I started doing that, I could have ended up growing a business that was based around trade work. Nothing wrong with trade work, but I'm not skilled at it and I didn't want to do it. There are people who like doing that kind of thing, and I am very happy to leave it for them to do. So I knew from the beginning that there was some work that I just wasn't willing to do. The other thing I wasn't willing to do was I was not willing to give my work away for free. Lots of people talk about that, and I've been reading a book right now called The $100 Startup, I think is what it's called. And it's a very interesting book. And I just finished a chapter about providing a ton of value and, giving away things for free. When you read those, hear those, see those suggestions, I urge you to take them with a very hefty grain of coarse salt, because the idea is not that you just give away everything for free. If you are a mechanic, you're not just going to do oil changes for free. If you're a massage, you're not just going to give massages away for free. Chiropractor, esthetician, any kind of service-focused business, I don't care what the service is, social media, right? You're not going to just give that away for free. And it's okay to do it on occasion, but you cannot build a business. The primary driver of a business, as much as we may not want to talk about it, is to make money. I talk about that a lot here on the podcast. If you're giving everything away for free, then why would somebody want to pay you for that service later? And when I started my business, as much as I was feeling frustrated because it wasn't growing as quickly as I wanted, and I couldn't seem to bring on clients no matter, it just didn't seem to come the way that I had been told it would, the way I had for all the effort and anything I'd been putting into it. I'm just like, geez, for how much I'm working on this and working in this should be a whole lot busier than what I am. And my guy suggested I start doing free design consultations. I said, I'm not doing that because, first of all, there's no value in free. And second of all, How am I going to do a free design consultation? Say I do a half an hour for free or an hour for free. There's only so much you can do in that time. And most people will just keep asking questions for, oh, I just have one more thing. Oh, I just have one more thing. And before you know it, you're a half an hour past, but it's far enough past you should actually be billing it, but it's not so much past that people are going to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to keep you, right? They don't want to pay for that. And then how do I turn around from that to say, okay, but I charge $135 an hour and this is my hourly rate. So let's keep working together. If I'm giving it away for free, people aren't interested in doing that. So it's one of two things. I mean, like, yes, you can do some promos. I definitely have done some promotions. I've donated my time. I've done that a lot where I've taken design work and donated a design session to different charities, which is effectively, I'm not getting paid for that, but it is putting my name out there and doing some good work with the charity as well. So that's an option. You can do some discounted pricing for a very specific amount of time. Be very clear about parameters and things, but don't go giving away the farm. Be sure that you are continually keeping an eye on moving your bottom line up. You need to be able to be profitable. I don't talk about just building a business just for the sake of having something to do. All the things that I talk about when it comes to business is all about being profitable, which is why I built the Profit Power Pack. It's very specifically for service-focused businesses to boost your profit. It's not just about cutting costs. I know one of our strategy sessions we've had in the last couple of weeks was about cutting costs. And even in that session, I mentioned we're not just slashing through things here. We need to be smart about the decisions that we're making. So there are a lot of businesses that are getting started right now, and I'm very excited to see how many people are moving into testing out the waters of entrepreneurship. It's quite fun to have conversations with people who've been thinking about having a business idea for a while, or for whatever reason, now is the time for them to give it a try. For lots of people I speak to, it's because they've lost their job or they're working from home or they're bored, whatever it is. And so they're wanting to give entrepreneurship a try. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and I really encourage you, if you're listening to this and you haven't started a business but you've always wanted to, now's a great time. The world is changing. The world is always changing. Even if the coronavirus wasn't a thing right now, there'd be something else going on. The world is always in a state of flux, and it's always growing and evolving. But I think it's a beautiful time to take advantage of it. I just would want to make sure that as you're moving into it, that you're not doing what this business owner I spoke to earlier this week was doing, where you're so desperate for having that first order and wanting to please your customer. It wasn't that the person was desperate to have the order. They wanted to please the customer. They wanted to build a solid reputation. And I admire that and I applaud that. And I think that's fantastic. And I highly encourage you to do so, but not at the sake of your bottom line. You cannot build a business that does not make money. It just doesn't work that way. It's something that I've been challenged with Dare to Begin is, how do I position the business? And what does it look like? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to be bringing products and materials out for you that you really want, that you're really needing right now? Which is why when I ask for questions and feedback, I want to know what it is you're struggling with so I can really tailor the offering for you so that I can meet you where you're at very specifically. So as you're getting started, when it comes up, when there are opportunities that come up to do things for free, to send things for free, think about it twice. You don't have to say no right away, but if you're saying yes begrudgingly, that's a no. Just don't do it. Like if you're just like, well, I got nothing else to do, so I guess I might as well do this. That's a hard no. In the book that I was reading, I think it's in the same chapter actually about value. I can't remember exactly, but they were talking about, the author was talking about, how it's very popular for lots of coaches to say, just say no to everything because you need to be protective of your time. And he positioned something that I think I've spoken about in the podcast before, where it doesn't always have to be a no, and you don't always have to think about every possible opportunity like in super heavy detail. but basically said, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. So if it doesn't excite you, if you're not like, yeah, I want to do this, let's do this, then it's a no. It's a no for you. It's not a fit, and that's totally fine. I want to touch on briefly about money because I mentioned this earlier as well. I have a project that's on the works right now in my design business, and in fact, in order to be able to sit down and record this podcast, I had to find my desk again. It was loaded under a pile of samples. I'm in the process of selecting materials for this project. So, which, guys, is hard right now. It's the first time I've bumped up against something with this whole coronavirus that I haven't liked, that's been really restrictive, that I'm just like, how do I select materials when I can't get out to go select materials? So selecting wallpaper and fabrics online is no fun. But anyway, it's a small thing. I know if you're having more struggles at home, you're probably like, Amy, really? That's your biggest concern? I know I'm very blessed, but it's tricky as designers. We're tactile people. When I can go to a supply room and I can select 5, 6, 7, 8 different fabrics in an hour that I know will work really well. Because I can move through the books pretty quickly. I know what I'm looking for. I can feel it. I can touch it. I can see how it interacts. But trying to look at 2x2 swatches on a website is way less fun and way more work, as it turns out. So there's that. But what I want to talk about is money. I digressed a little bit here. So I mentioned I'm working on this project. This project is a fairly big project. It's a commercial project, which means that the work is in different phases. My contracts are in different phases, and we're just finishing off the first phase of the first contract. I apologize. I'm still in the selections phase, so that contract is still ongoing, but the first phase contract is nearly complete. And in all of my contracts, it's very clear that I do fixed price contract for all the projects that I do. And one of the line items that I include in my contract is that if there is additional work that is required by myself or my company, that there's a certain rate that I charge for that time, and that it is done by the hour. And so as I was discussing with my contact person on this commercial job about getting things ready, they asked me again, could you please just, when you send the invoice, also please send just a quick write-up about what the rate is so that we can keep that in mind moving forward. And I really appreciated the fact that they were so just forward about it and just said like, hey, we just want to make sure things are on the right page. But I laughed, and here's why I laughed. And I said to them, I said, I absolutely will do that. I am very open when it comes to conversations about money. It's one of the most emotionally charged factors in any project, in any part of anybody's life, period. And so I feel that it's always much better to be upfront and honest about what's going on. If you're hiding things or you're afraid to talk about money, then you move into that whole situation of being desperate for the order and being fearful around working with your clients. You cannot have a business and be afraid to talk about money. Now, it's so fascinating as an interior designer to have conversations about money because, as you can imagine, anytime I'm working with a client, most of the time, we're not doing work that is going to be something that they can implement for free. On occasion, I'll do design sessions where I'm going to help place artwork or, rearrange a space or something like that, maybe make suggestions for a few small additions. But in most cases, we're working on renovations, we're working on complete overhauls of spaces or homes that, and that doesn't come for free. And so I always find it very amusing how reticent people are to talk about their budget. It's such a fascinating thing to me that when I ask for a budget, I get a lot of resistance. And I have said over and over and over again that, it really doesn't matter what your budget is, but I do need a budget because I can't design a space without knowing the budget. It's very, very, very difficult. If you give me ideas for a space that's, really luxurious and you want, marble countertops and really lovely tile floors and exquisite wallpaper and custom drapery and, all the bells and whistles. And then you're like, okay, but my budget's $10,000 and we just talked about, a big kitchen reno. It's like, yeah, that's not going to work. So in most cases, I can work within a budget, but I need to know what that is. So it's fascinating to me that people are concerned about talking about money. Now, what I find even more interesting is how business owners talk about money. Business owners talk about money in two ways that I've seen so far. The first way is in anger. They're feeling frustrated because they're not getting paid enough. They're not getting paid on time. They're not getting paid at all. If it's something like I mentioned, I work in the tech industry. So on occasion, I talk to people where their online checkouts aren't working or something, and so their money's on hold. That's a big deal. That's a lot of frustration and anger and deep, high levels of negative emotion. The other way that business owners will talk about it is not at all, in a way, as if there's some shame around money. There's shame around talking about what they charge per hour. I've been in countless, business meetings, and I'm trying to think what they're called, like a mastermind, but a little bit different, where business owners don't want to say what they charge per hour. And part of that is very likely shame because, in some of the situations I've been in, we were getting coached. And one of the things was about, being really honest about our rates, but also, are you actually charging enough? And so lots of people were afraid to say something because they didn't want to be confronted with the truth that they were not charging enough for their services. And this happens a lot. So I find, particularly in new business, and at least with the people that I've spoken to over the years, most new business owners fall in two categories. They either charge way too little. I charge $135 an hour for my design services. That's about average. It's not top of the line. It's not bottom of the barrel. It's very medium. It puts me right in line with the kind of the kind of clients that I want to speak or that I want to work with. But I have talked with designers, new designers who either just finished, college or university, or they did design school forever ago and they just left a job and they're charging like $30 or $40 an hour. And I just shake my head. I'm like, stop doing that right now. Because, and if you've ever hired an interior designer, you might be saying, Amy, why are you saying not to charge that lower price? I feel like that sentence came out very poorly, but anyway, why are you saying not to charge so little? The reason is this: the biggest reason that it is very, very, very bad to undercharge for your services is that you are degrading the value of your services. It is basically almost the same as offering things for free, although it's in some cases worse. When you're offering it for free, people feel there is sometimes a feeling of indebtedness, which is not, I think, ideal. One of the reasons why I don't like having things offered for free. But as much as they may not see value, there'll be something that they take away from it. But if they can get you for $40 an hour, when let's say the lowest going rate is $90 an hour, then people are they're gonna think they got a screaming deal, but you're gonna get clients that you don't want to have. And so you can't both complain about not making enough money and how hard you have to work and charge way below what the market value is for your service or your product. It doesn't work. You can't do them both. We have in the building industry, and my guy and I were actually just talking about this the other day, you can have two of three things. The three things that everybody's looking for is cheap, fast, and good. You can have two of those. You can never have three of those. Three of those does not exist. You cannot, for example, we were talking about building a house. You cannot build a house for cheap, that is built well, and that is built fast. Doesn't work. It's just not possible. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's going to say, well, Amy, there's this very specific example where that's exactly what happened. They got it for cheap, they got it fast, and it's built really well. Great. If that happened, that's fantastic. I trust that house is secure and everything's in good shape. great. But in most cases, 99.9% of cases, you can have 2 of the 3. You cannot have all of them all at once. It's that whole too good to be true situation, right? It just doesn't happen. So think about the rates that you're charging and be honest about money. Now, this is the biggest thing that I want to pair this off with, not being desperate for the order. No matter your own personal relationship with money, and as I've mentioned on the podcast many episodes, I've been working on my own relationship with money for the last, about 8 months, plus however many years I've been around. But I've been really focusing on improving my relationship with money in the last 8 to 10 months or so. I had a very interesting experience that I'm not going to talk about today recently with regard to money and just how I've been changing my reality. But no matter what my relationship with money was, all the way throughout, I was always honest about money when it came to my business. I didn't feel fearful about stating the rates that I charge. I was not apologizing for the rates that I charge. I didn't feel apologetic when I sent out an invoice. Clients know what I charge. It's part of also the reason that I moved to a fixed price versus just going hourly, which is something I cover a lot in the Profit Power Pack. But I'm very honest and upfront about money, and I'm honest and upfront about what they get. And it's served me very, very, very well in my business. It means that customers, because I don't bring my own emotion into it when I talk about money, they don't have to take my emotion on top of their own. They either can or cannot afford my services. And it's not to be cold and heartless and be like, well, if you can't afford me, then too bad for you. But you either can or cannot afford to hire someone at $135 an hour. If you cannot afford that, then that is okay. There is no shame in that. But then we're not going to work together. I am not going to discount my rates in order to meet what your needs are. It's not how that works. I don't go to the grocery store and say, well, I can't pay $5 for this jug of milk. I can only pay $2 for this jug of milk, and therefore you're going to sell it to me for $2. That's not how it works here in North America. But being honest about money and just being upfront about it and letting customers know, it's going to be this much to do this kind of work that we're talking about means that customers and clients can make, I use those words interchangeably, customers and clients. Typically I call them clients, but I've been on a customer stream recently. Typically my clients, they know, okay, then this is what it's going to be, and they either can or cannot afford it. And they can make a very smart and educated decision based on that information. So be honest about your pricing. Take a good look at your pricing right now. If you've been in business, if you're anywhere from like, I haven't started yet to I've been in business for 2 years, take a real good, honest look at your pricing right now. And do not, this one's a big one, do not reason away why you have a lower price. I cannot count how many conversations I've had with business owners, not just designers, but lots of business owners who discount their pricing because, and I'm not kidding on this, I don't have much overhead. I don't have as much as those other guys. Therefore, I can charge less. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous if you were to think about it this way. Let's say that you have a massage therapist who comes to your home and gives you a massage at your home and charges, say $50 for a massage. And they charge you $50 for a massage because they're like, well, I don't have any overhead. I just need to drive out there. And so that's fine. That's all it needs. Then this massage therapist decides, I actually want to open up a spa. So they need to lease a space. They need to renovate the space. They need to staff the space. All of a sudden that massage goes from $50 an hour to $150 an hour. And it's the same massage. It's the same experience in a way. But now the owner is saying, well, actually it's going to cost 3 times more. And you're going to go, why would it cost 3 times more? So now I have to come to you, whereas before you came to me, and it cost me 3 times as much to work with you. That doesn't make any sense. Whereas if the massage therapist had always been charging $150 for an hour massage, I mean, if you're going to somebody's house, I don't think you should be doing it for less than $50, like, or less than $100 an hour. I mean, that's just crazy. Think about all the travel time and the wear and tear on your vehicle that you can't bill a client for that, right? So it's if the price was the same, but now you're creating an elevated experience for this customer, that makes sense. So if you were already charging $150 a massage, and now they're coming downtown to meet you or wherever your location is, but they walk in and they're pampered from the moment they get there. They get a glass of fresh water, and they have whatever. I'm just paused so infrequently in my life, but when they're pampered just the moment that they walk in, it's a whole different experience. And so then clients don't mind, even if they have to pay a bit more, but it can't be 3 times the price. So think about the price that you're charging, and do not discount because you're saying, well, I don't have the overhead that other people do. It's the worst reason in the world to charge less. Don't do that. The only reason in the world that I could think of that is really valid, and I'm sure, again, there's lots of people who could come up and say, well, this one should be valid and this one should be valid. But the only reason that I can think of that would be valid to charge less is if you have little to no experience. And I totally understand that it's, we all start from zero experience. And I used to hate when I was a teenager and in my 20s, and you'd look at these job listings and like, well, must have this much experience. Like, how can I get this experience if I can't get hired because I don't have experience? It's a catch-22. But I understand when you're building your business that you might want to, gain some experience, get some clients under your belt. So pricing lower, totally okay. If where I live right now, let's say $125 an hour is the basic, sort of the average, what it shakes out to be, the average price for a designer per hour. If you have no experience, you're just at a university or college or what have you, and you're like, okay, I want to give this a try, $95 an hour, I think that's reasonable. And if customers ask and just say, like, wow, you're a lot less than others, you can say, this price will not be around for long. I'm offering this price for the first 6 months of my business because I want to gain a bit extra experience. I'll be honest, I have this much experience in the industry and I think I can do really well, but that's why I offer a slightly lower price at this time. You might have customers who say, no, I'm not interested in working with you because I want someone more experienced, and that is okay. When I was offered this commercial project that I'm working on right now, they were clients of mine that I had worked with previously on their home. I don't do commercial design. I don't actively go find commercial projects. It's not really ever been a passion of mine, and I'm very happy to let people who want to do commercial design take those projects on. But the client came to me and they said, basically they had enjoyed working with me so well when we did their home that they had talked to some commercial designers and they just were like, wow, this is not the experience that we're looking for. We're looking for something very specific. And I don't understand, why I would have to pay this much money for these designers when we don't think that we need to have all those intricacies. And so they asked me if I could do the project. Now, here's what I'm trying to get at. When they asked me about this, I was happy to meet with them. We went over the project, went over the parameters, but I was extremely clear. I am not a commercial designer. I don't have my ICDQ. I feel like I'm missing a letter in there. I don't have my interior design designation. I've gone to university for interior design, done interior design for years, but I don't have that, whatever the professional interior designer or whatever stamp. It's never interested me. I thought very briefly about doing a master's and going that way, but I looked at it and went, I don't really want to. And it didn't affect the kind of work that I wanted to do. But that does mean that there are some parts of commercial that I just don't know, and I don't have the capability to do it. But I was honest with them. And so the pricing that I gave them is, way better than what they would have hired a commercial design firm. But they also knew that in hiring me, there's going to be some gaps in my experience because I don't typically do commercial design. If you're upfront with people, for the most part, they're okay with it, and they will be happy to work with and around what you do or do not know. It is totally okay, and in I would argue in most cases very important to be honest with people. You don't need to give away the farm. I know sometimes I can be a bit too honest, which is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But I don't think that bluffing your way in is a great way to go. You don't want to. I have met a lot of people who've hired, in particular trades or contractors, who said that they could do this and they could do that and they could do all these things. And then when it actually came, push came to shove and it came down to doing the project, they just couldn't do it because they didn't have the experience or they didn't have the know-how, and they just bluffed their way through. So it leaves a very, very, very sour taste in somebody's mouth. So don't do that. So to wrap today, I just want to remind you, wherever you are in your business, please take a look at the rates that you're charging, whether it's products or services. It is smart to be, pay attention to where you want to be in the market. I don't want to get into this very deep here, but if you're thinking about, I was just looking at clothing the other day. So if you're shopping at Walmart, or you're shopping at Ralph Lauren, or you're shopping at, I don't know, Kate Spade or Prada, or, some super luxurious brand, they are not priced the same. Walmart and Prada do not have the same products. They do not price the same way, right? So think about where you want to be in the market. Think about your pricing. And just what I wanted to say from the beginning is just don't be desperate for the order. Your business will grow. It will take time. It will probably take way longer than you think. It's probably going to be very frustrating. And you're like, wow, Amy, this is like the most depressing way to finish a podcast. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But I do want you to, I want to have that honest conversation with you and just say, it's going to take some time to get there, but you will get there. So build it smart, build it right from the beginning. All right. I will leave you with that for this week. We are rounding out April. I can hardly believe that we're going to be into May next month. I also can hardly believe that this is the 63rd episode of the podcast. That's kind of blown my mind. So thank you so much if you've been with me from the beginning. Thank you so much for coming on this ride with me. And I would really love it if you would share this podcast out. If you like this episode, if you found some great value in it, please share the podcast episode out. If you would like to hear a specific question or topic covered in a future episode, please DM me on Instagram. You can find me at IDareToBegin. And I look forward to hearing from you. I wish you a phenomenal rest of the day. Bye for now.